mics are on.
So whenever we're ready.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. Hello.
Hello.
And welcome to the inaugural Untitled podcast.
Only as of yet.
Indeed.
That's not like a meta name. Like, we're not going for the wanky.
No.
This podcast doesn't have a name. This page left intentionally blank.
In fact, anything but.
Pretty much
This,
the opposite.
this
is the vibe.
Pilot, as it were. I think that's what we're going to do, isn't it? We're going to try and find a name.
I think that's the theme for, if theme is not too strong a word, which I feel it might be.
Disorganised, shambolic plan.
Yeah, so welcome to the first episode of whatever this turns out to be. By the end of the episode, we'll have a name. That's our commitment.
No, I'm thinking something about a real shame. That is a shame.
That's
We
a shame.
both said that simultaneously.
Oh, so you're saying that's like a sign from
No.
Pentecostal God?
No,
I
anything
think
but.
you are.
But I think that it's the closest that we've come to agreeing on
That's
anything
true,
so
actually.
far is that we spontaneously said it.
So, okay, and our reservation was that we don't want to sound too negative. Is there anything we can do to that phrase to perk it up?
No.
Exclamation mark.
That's a real shame.
That's a shame. That's a shame pod is free.
That's a shame pod.
That's a shame pod. Oh, I don't...
A shame pod. It's
what's a
very
shame
confessional
pod?
again.
Yeah.
Get into the shame pod.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
Hello, Isaac and Declan. It's me, Paul the Shy Yeti, from the Shy Life podcast. I just wanted to wish you both a very happy 200th episode for That's a Shame podcast. I can't believe it's been over 4 years now. I think we were talking the other day on Twitch or on Discord. I was wondering, was it just a coincidence that I saw your first episode on Twitter? Yes, it's weird. It's weird. So many new podcasts come up, and but I saw your first episode advertised, and I decided to subscribe. But anyway, 200 episodes later, and you're still both here, just about, hey? But anyway, may you do many more episodes. May you play many more exciting games on Twitch, including ABC Murders 2. We love that game. Gary Poirot is a legend. I also want to thank you for the help you've given me on my show, and the things that you've been sending me, which I am using. So yes, right. Well, happy 200th, and yes, speak to you soon. Bye for now.
Hello and welcome to the 200th episode of your favourite podcast and mine, It's That's a Shame, with Isaac and Declan. We are thrilled to be here, aren't we?
I'm getting teary.
I'm not surprised, because we've been through years of this bullshit. And we never really found our feet, someone says. You'll have heard in the intro.
I think we're just getting into our stride.
Yeah, this is it. They say it takes about 4 years to really get going with a show. It's about sowing the seeds. You'll have heard in the intro, before, I depending on your definition of intro, you've heard stuff from our pilot episode. Mm-hmm. Declan, how did it feel to hear you from the past there? Did you detect a certain optimism in your voice that the world has since crushed?
I don't want to say yes, because I feel like that would very much be a reading that I've brought to the piece, just given that's how I feel.
Yes.
But what I think is perhaps more pressing is the fact that we talk about the theme of the show there. We joke about it being a disorganized, shambolic plan, and how this one's a little bit off the cuff, but in
the
future,
rest of them will have features.
they're going to be
jingles.
and we stuck to that vision, I suppose.
We did. We saw it through. How does it feel knowing that that was probably the best time of your life?
Yep.
Good. Now, I went back to our Facebook messages to try and find out anything I could about what was going through our heads at this time. I'd just been in Australia. I had forgotten right before.
Yeah, well, it was there that while you were there, that we sort of formalised most of it. And indeed, one of our other hugely successful projects
started on the plane home, I believe, or there, I can't remember. And basically, it took me about 45 minutes to scroll back in Messenger, because there's no way of going to a date. And the outcome is that we were at the same house, so we didn't use Messenger.
Yeah.
So there was nothing there, which I did suspect.
I was about
was
to
going
tell
be
you
the
that
case.
just now, yeah.
I did find a couple of little things. I saw there was a chain of messages that you just sent apropos of nothing that said, "Every day I am more convinced that our podcast should be called Horrid Idiots. My only reservation is that horrid idiots out there might think we're referring to ourselves." Fine. And then I also discovered a Google Doc that we made, where we just laid down some of the ideas. So title, undecided, something simple.
Yeah.
Format, weekly, about 60 minutes. Proposed start date of week commencing April 17th, but we should decide on a recording day. Or maybe we don't decide on a recording day and adjust each week to our schedules. So that was kind of a foreshadowing the loose
really was
approach to recording and release date.
Yeah, what we seem to have done was we didn't have a title. We didn't really have a concept. We didn't have an audience for sure. We didn't have a definitive length. We had a start date that we then did not stick to, I believe.
Really?
So
Nice.
powerful, really.
I think we should start, says the document, with basically no format and just see what happens. I like the idea of it evolving as we go. Maybe adding features that we come up with on the spot. Other than intro/outro music, I think we should do episode 1 with nothing else and just see what comes of it. And indeed we did.
And that is you cannot say that we didn't stick to the vision.
We certainly stuck to it big time. Now, today's episode, episode 200, I don't know if I mentioned, it's a big, huge milestone.
You did, yeah. I was crying at the time.
The theme, the concept is we're going to be looking backwards. We're going to be revisiting.
A retrospectiva, if you will.
I suppose that's one way of putting it. But much like Janus before us, as one face gazes back onto our own past, rather into our own past, the other face is smiling at tomorrow. And as a wise tree once said, he who plants a tree winks at mortality. And I think it's with that wink in our eye and spring in our step that today I'm excited to announce that we will also be doing some exciting announcements.
That is true. And I did know that. I don't want listeners to think that I wasn't aware of that.
Declan was clued in on that.
I did know that.
We actually talk outside of the show.
Some of them, in a way, they apply to me too, the announcements. So it would have been good.
It would have been a shame I sprung them on.
Yeah, it would be bad.
I'm not telling you any of them yet. You're going to have to keep listening as we dive back, tying up any loose ends, revisiting favourite figures from the history of That's a Shame, and overall just sort of jacking off in one great big masturbatory reflection on what was and consideration of what is to come.
All right, so you never phrased it quite so sexually when we were doing the planning. That's
just
interesting.
Came to me just now.
Really? Is that another pun or...?
Our first clip comes from early in the show. Episode 2.
Episode number 2, indeed, yeah.
Really early. Where we investigated a profound figure, a thought leader, absolutely, a grossler, and a problematic political figure.
Demagogue.
Yeah. We're talking, of course, of...
Well, it's John Darkins.
Now, the next tweet.
Mm-hmm. Paint a picture, set the scene.
It's not good.
Oh.
This is where we begin to lose John.
Is this where we diverge?
This is where, you know that poem about there being the road less travelled?
Oh, is he? He's not taking that, is he?
No, he very much is. Oh. John is hacking his way through the road less travelled. In fact, John's hacking his way through the brush in between the two roads.
That is bold. He's a pathfinder.
Because imagine a bolder beginning to a tweet than the 4 words, "Charities make you sick."
All of them.
Charities, it's a real theme. Like, I didn't ever really pick up on it as much. Like, I
don't
noticed one
that.
or two, but he fucking hates them.
Just as a concept?
Yeah.
Is it charity that you hate? Okay, no, tell me.
Charities make you sick. They moan about the government.
Right.
Say they hit the poor.
Hit them?
Yep.
Okay, I
But
don't remember
they
that.
take money from the poor. Don't moan. You get money.
Right, okay, so again, the moaning theme.
Yeah.
He hates a moan. Unless it's his.
Ironically.
What a character he was,
I
right?
tell you, he keeps you on your toes, doesn't he?
He's got some out there stances, and he's not afraid to tweet them at often directly at the people he is talking about, but also crucially without
not
the
at
at
them.
sign.
Yeah. With reference to, he's not afraid to name drop.
For sure.
He's not like subtweeting.
No.
He'll get your name out there.
Cards on the table.
He'll even try. There is a point in the episode where he tries to actually thank a lady at Sky who helped him.
Oh, yeah.
But he just says, he says like, Sandra at Sky, like, thanks for the help. And then optimistically ends the tweet with, hope this gets to the right person. Like, it's just launching it out there like a message in a bottle. It was interesting to me that you said that this was somewhere early on in the show, because in one sense, yes, it is. It was episode number 2. But another thing that I found quite interesting when I listened back was relative to the episode itself. Oh, it took us a while to get going. We were chatting for absolutely nothing for about 20 minutes. Huge. I thought for a moment that maybe we'd just accidentally had 20 minutes of us doing vague admin tacked onto the start, because it's us chatting about, might have to change the colour of the font in the logo and all of this sorts of stuff. So it's easy to see why people were so intrigued, because I suppose to an outsider it must have looked like such an avant-garde experiment.
Yeah, well, people weren't used
to
people putting out material that was so unfiltered.
Yeah, exactly.
And now that's huge. Joe Rogan just vomits for 7 hours of drivel
straight out there. I was thinking back over, John, because it was one of the. It's weirdly one of the more formalised episodes we've had.
Yeah.
It was, we had a couple in the bag early on.
Yeah.
The only time we've ever pre-recorded and had a couple ready to go. But what I think is interesting is that he did manage to set the scene for a lot of the freaks that we would speak to.
Yes.
Very sort of terminally online boomer being the vibe there. And really sort of just a transient presence in our lives. He had kind of like wandered in while we were at university, wandered back out again.
He took us under his wing.
We resurrected him for the show.
Yeah.
And almost in a literal sense, because he did return with a second Twitter account with more tweets than ever before.
Having presumably just been locked out of his former.
It is gone.
Oh no!
I cannot for the life of me find it, nor can I find which of our other episodes it was in. Making me think maybe we made that up.
Injunction happened. They've just removed all stuff that relates to it.
I did find an account made, 2 accounts in fact, in the name John Darkins that were made before the first account that we knew about. And they had almost no tweets. This John says that he's from Leicester.
That's not our John, is it?
But if I show you sort of some of the tweets, he only did 8.
A similar vibe.
Sort of. This John he's hornier than our John.
Oh, okay.
His tweets include the following: at Katy Perry, I think you're so sweet, kiss.
Did you reply or?
No, weirdly not.
Not yet.
But it was only, almost exactly 9 years ago. It was June 17th, 2012.
Crazy.
A few months before that, he had tweeted at what is a now suspended account, You make me feel good.
Oh no. Classic.
At Jessie J Online, you got it all, girl. Please don't fuck it up. Kiss to you, Jono.
What are you getting across?
What I'm getting across is he wrote, please don't.
Yeah.
F-U, full stop, space, capital C, K, full stop, space, it up. He tried sending one to official Adele. He was just a person who loves the ladies.
He was a pop head.
There he is. There's a picture of him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which kind of is what I always presumed Darkins did look like. But yeah,
because we only ever saw his baby photo, right? He had a photo of like
him as a Babbitts
child from the Victorian era.
that he replaced with a picture of a car. Yeah, I thought that we might, just for old time's sake, revisit some of the big classics of John. I was hoping, like you say, to maybe see where he'd gone, you know, what strides he'd made in the world. He was kind of prophetic in a way. We describe him in the episode as a prophet, and with sort of 4 more years of hindsight.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean,
he's like a keystone species where you can like test the temperature of an ecosystem by looking at how many lions there are or something.
Yeah, and you know that someone's career is either going in the right places or is fucked based on whether John does or doesn't like you. Yeah,
and every Brit.
He was not a fan. You'll remember of Charities, as we just heard.
Couldn't stand.
But also, and this one comes out of left field, wasn't a fan of the EU. What's the difference between EU and Charities? None. They both want your money, he says in one damning tweet from October 2014.
That's pithy as well, I think.
He's often moaning about, you wouldn't believe it, the BBC. He doesn't like that. Charities make you sick, as we just heard. Alex Salmon. Huge fan of him, as of course of Nick Clegg.
Gleggy.
That he often writes to.
No, but you hated Clegg, didn't he?
He was not a fan of Clegg. Not a fan of Clegg at all. No. There really was no one that he was a fan of. In fact, the only person he was a fan of was
from Sky.
Let's have a look at some like big classics, of course. Why does BBC have 2 ladies doing the sport? Wasting public money again, like they always do. Waste money.
Wow.
He wasn't a big fan. He at one point, I don't know if I've even got it anymore, but he at one point said of women playing football or women doing sport, it's like, why they have women's sport on the telly? No problem with women doing sport, but don't show it. Just do it.
Dear me.
Why are we worried about wildlife? He said in a uniquely themed tweet.
Yep.
They sting, bite, kill you, mark you, eat you. They are pests. They have their own world. Leave alone.
That's my favourite. That's a really beautiful John Darkins.
It really
tweet.
captures something that I think the rest of his tweets fail to, which is that he's a man of the earth.
For sure. Speaking of the earth...
No.
One of the places on it is a special little land where dreams come true.
Where's that?
It's Thorpe Park.
Can we just set up as well that when the only bit of theming here, other than the theme of you're about to go to a cloakroom to try and haggle for your own coat to be returned to you, was that there's this overly upbeat voice who described the ride as riding a wave of light and sound.
What this meant.
What a grand, like, beautiful phrasing, though.
4 LEDs, a shit smoke machine, and a song which was longer than the ride by a factor of 100, to the point that by the time the ride finished, we hadn't even got to the drop.
Yeah, we got a little intro. I think we got a crossfade from the previous track, if we were lucky.
Genuinely appalling.
Wow.
Oh, some keen insights there.
Yeah, I think so. Wow.
Into a national treasure.
Really painted a picture for me.
It's one of the most beautiful islands going. That's
so I think you mean set of islands.
Is it?
It's like an archipelago.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I suppose so, because there is the dome is its own island, right?
The dome is its own island, and then the rest of from that springs all the various different land zones and islands there.
Our preoccupation with Thorpe Park and theme parks in general would go on to really bite us when we were almost killed in an Airbnb, which we'll come back to later. But other than the park itself, our particular fascination was always with the accompanying suite of luxury living accommodation for guests who really want to be in the heart of it, right? They want to sleep in Thorpe Park. They want to wake up in Thorpe Park. An experience that I can't even imagine how good it would be.
No, and, it's not to say that the surrounding area doesn't have anything. There is, of course, the Chertsey Museum.
Oh, huge.
Where guests could spend up to 30 minutes wandering around and marvelling at the history of Chertsey. So it's not that, you couldn't or wouldn't want to stay elsewhere, but how rare is it that you get to stay on an island,
Yeah,
within an
alone.
island.
Just that.
That's like, that alone, it would be enough. But to know that you're so close to such kind of cultural artifacts as the Swarm, with all its mythology and
Its
history. Yeah, like there's just
GB News looking ride videos about the dragon of Chertsey or
Yeah.
the big insects that
there's a sort of billboard with a big hole in it.
That's fun.
You know, if you had even a whiff of an opportunity
Yeah.
to sleep near that, to have that pervade your dreams, I think you would. I think we would have done
And I'm here
something.
to say that I think we might have an opportunity because
No.
it's got cheaper.
No!
It's actually gone down in price.
The Shark Hotel, no
well,
way.
not quite. The
Oh,
Shark Hotel.
no.
It's had a rebrand.
No.
Not a big one.
Okay.
It's had a rebrand.
The Shark Motel.
I mean, it is exactly in that vein. It's a rebrand based on the
the
concept
Whale
of
Hotel.
expectation management.
Right, okay.
It's now called the Thorpe Shark Cabins. I think someone legally
challenged
their ability to use the word hotel
You
to
cannot,
describe
in good conscience,
shipping containers.
this. It's pod-based living, you know.
It's still not cheap. It's £169 a night.
That
two
is
people.
extortionate.
That's for if we.
But
were
I'm
living
assuming, like, by cabin makes it sound like maybe they've revamped. Maybe there's less of the water damp drizzle on the walls.
Oh, we'll find out. What I thought I would do is I've got some of their copy from this because clearly they've had to change how they advertise the whole place.
Yeah.
Because of this radical transformation.
They've had to, at the threat of lawsuit, remove
Yeah.
any instance of the word hotel.
And then also because it reopened relatively recently, I've just got a selection of a few TripAdvisor reviews just to see how it's been received.
Yeah.
The cabins are located just off the shores of the island, so you're seconds away
The
from some of
shores.
the UK's most thrilling rides.
The closest they have to a shore is that fake beach that if you're not there on the 3 days of the year where it's sunny
just
enough,
dry,
it's
isn't
just a bit of concrete
Yeah,
with no
like blue
water.
concrete, but,
Yeah.
but not very blue. You get 10% off in their shops and restaurants. You get a delicious grab-and-go Costa breakfast with a value of
wow.
up to £5. With nautical
up to
theming,
£5.
Yeah.
Oh.
With nautical theming, shark-bitten surfboards, and fishy features to look out for.
Are they? I like that they are kind of setting the shark-bitten surfboards and fishy features apart from the nautical
Yeah,
theming.
they're
Like
separate.
that.
Your walk to your cabin will be as exciting as your day in the park. That's really depressing. They're really
grim.
downplaying or being very honest about
Yeah.
what they've got to offer. Enjoy the park from opening and then check in from 3 p.m. Admire the stunning views of the lake and dive into the mouth of the shark to your very own quirky quarters. This time, remember previously they did a thing where you'd get like fast pass access. You get like exclusive access to the park
To 1 hour.
For 1 hour. before
Not
the
exclusive
general
access to the park. You go in at the same time as the public,
But there are
for
a
the
few
first
rides.
for the first hour you had a fast pass.
Yeah. But also it seemed to be the case that you'd only realistically be able to use it on like 2 things in that hour. Well, that's gone. They clearly thought that's probably a bit much.
You don't want to treat people.
Yeah,
do
but
you?
I mean, for the low price of £169,
and if they have too much of a good time in the park, they'll forget what a wonderful time they had at the
Absolutely.
Shark
And just
Sorry,
walking to the
Thorpe,
cabins.
the Thorpe Shark Cabins.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now instead, what they'll give you is you get exclusive access to just this new ride, the Black Mirror Labyrinth, from 10 to 11:30 on the second day of your visit. So it's quite a specific benefit, but I think you'll agree a great one.
Wow. That's the sort of benefit that I wouldn't even have thought
Yeah.
to dream up.
They're deeply
That's how you know
generous
it's good. Yeah.
at the Merlin Group.
What's the any mention so far of the all the keys work for all the rooms? Anyone can come into your
Policy.
cabin at night.
Yeah, no,
Angle.
weirdly, they don't lead with that one. I think
well,
that's
maybe
one
that's
of the
somewhere
quirky
else.
secrets that you discover when you're there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they mean by fishy features.
imagine
Because
it-
what's more fishy than a
What's
stranger
fishier?
letting himself in and robbing you?
Maybe I like the idea of them selling it as a positive about your key, not a negative about everyone else's.
You get an exclusive skeleton
access
key.
to everyone's bed.
The shark cabin was awful. The wet room was mouldy.
To me, there's something so sweet about the idea that there are people who are coming to this who they don't know the history.
Yeah.
They don't know
They're
that this is the
diving in.
Shark Hotel. They don't know anything about, and so to them,
Like
they're
turning
very,
up at the Oval.
They're very earnestly buying into the new branding of the Shark Cabin, which
These
is
shark
somehow,
cabins-
which is somehow funny. You're calling it the Shark
Yeah.
Cabin.
The shark cabin was awful. The wet room was mouldy, and the extraction didn't work, so all of our belongings were damp. The beds are uncomfortable, and there seems to be no soundproofing, so any noise must be heard easily, and you could feel people walking past.
Must
outside.
is a very funny thing to say.
I hate the idea that you could feel people walking past.
Very despicable.
The included breakfast was cold, so I would not recommend staying at the cabins. Another review, just an extract, says, staying at Shark Cabin, which was fine for what it is, although my son found someone's sock on the top bunk. That's upsetting.
No.
I visited Thorpe Park early May and stayed in the cabins for one night. False advertisement to start with. The cabin is absolutely tiny with no windows, not fit for 4 people. Not a chance. Secondly, when you arrive with all your luggage, a rude security guard, and you may remember this was the case last time, insists he must search your bag from top to toe, rummaging through all of your personal belongings, including underwear, in front of other guests.
Who do they think is doing a terror attack at the Thorpe Shark cabins?
This is to ensure you do not have alcohol.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I didn't realise.
They wouldn't want you having a good time.
Yeah. I didn't realise I'd be treated as if I'm on a school trip, and I've never had my bag searched at any resort, which was invasive and a complete violation of privacy. The room itself, extremely small, and the bathroom floods, so it was extremely inconvenient and not a pleasant stay. I'd advise people not to stay in these cabins if you want to actually relax for the evening. And the last one, I just took an extract from this review.
Yeah.
Showers were freezing. A young girl came in to check and said, "That's warm. That's as warm as you'll get here." Wow. That's very funny.
So
we have to redefine the concept of warm.
Yeah, we've got our own scale.
Yeah.
here.
No, this is warm. Yeah. So it's going from strength to strength.
I mean, in a way, like, it feels like we possibly got off lightly when we stayed in a murderous Airbnb.
yeah.
Like,
I mean, at least to its credit, it wasn't damp.
it was not damp. It was dry. There was no danger of anyone getting in or out. So,
When they take those keys from you.
so at least you had that.
Speaking of keys, one of the keys to That's a Shame's success has been our outside of the box blue sky thinking and scheming. And one of the ways in which we most prominently deviated from, let's call them what they are, trash casts,
Prominently and, may I say, successfully.
was with a bold eschewing of the normal episode convention of integers.
Dewey Decimal, step aside. There's some new kids on the block.
I'm talking, of course, of the lauded, critically acclaimed, award-winning episode 3.5.
So he rang me back on my mobile, and he said, right, I need you to ring the room. I went, right. He went, but you can't tell him that the police are on the phone. I went, so what's my pretense for ringing him at 4 a.m? Hello, just doing a quick ring round. Haven't been attacked by any chance, have you? By multiple weapon-wielding maniacs? And he went, I don't really know.
Oh, he hadn't thought of that.
No.
Dave.
I went,
Oh,
well,
interesting. He's a fucking idiot.
yeah. I went, well, I'm not ringing him then. He went,
Good.
well, you've got to. I went, well, I fucking don't. I said, you've just told me that I can't tell him. One of the reasons that I couldn't tell him that the police were on the phone was because the man himself in the room was apparently a potential suspect. So I was like,
what, in his own attack?
Yeah, well, yeah. And so I was
He
like,
stabbed himself.
so I was like,
Strange
you want me
man.
to ring a man who is either in the presence of or is himself an armed attacker,
Attacking himself.
and you want me to ring him
Fighting with his own reflection.
at 4 a.m. and not let him know that the police are here? I'm not doing it. And he was like really taken aback by this, and he felt like he sounded really offended.
Oh.
And I was like, he was like, but you've got to, like,
You've got to, mate. It's
please.
me.
Oh no, embarrass me otherwise.
What a wacky tale.
Oh, crazy.
And really, one of the starting points of the whole new genre that we pioneered of the anecdote
It was one of the first anecdotes that we ever did.
in recorded history as well.
Yeah, ever written down.
Yeah.
Weirdly, you try and type the word anecdote, Google Docs will correct it to a similar looking word, the anecdote.
That's a derivative.
Seems,
term,
foolish. Now, I just want to say, like, we're some half hour into our 200 episode special.
Yeah.
And we're doing something of, like you say, a reminiscence, a looking back.
Yeah.
Do you think it strikes you about the podcast that so far of the 4 most memorable moments, they've been from the first 4 episodes of the show.
That's a really good point.
And less scattered throughout. Or
I don't think that's worth interrogating.
No, I thought not myself.
But it's fair to say, here's what I'll conclude. We came out of the gate swinging.
Oh, we were ready. I tell you, if the podcasting world was not prepared.
No, and in many ways still aren't.
They weren't prepared to listen, that's for sure.
They super weren't.
So we, when I listened back to this episode, the thing that struck me was that part of the reason that it got released as episode 3.5 was because we had already recorded and lined up to post episode 4. Again, just an insane moment in our history really where we had something ready to go. And I feel like this might be the reason, because let me tell you something about episode 3.5. No fucker listened to it.
To this day has the lowest downloads of any episode.
It's like the low. People they were afeared.
Furious about it. I think they were repulsed by the idea that we would.
They were not pleased.
Chuck that decimal in.
They were quite disgusted.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So the story in question is from my time as a night porter at a hotel back in Essex, and I was thinking about there
fondly.
Well, no, I was just thinking about there because I was telling you a story about it the other day. Which is that after myself and friend and flatmate Mark left the employ of this fine establishment, it did seem to, and I mean it had been on a trajectory of doing so anyway, go completely, as they say, into the toilet as a business.
I'm not an expert in the kind of hotel trade, but could you make the argument that there's like an inverse relationship between that hotel and the Thought Shark cabins? Do you think they were like taking their audience to some extent?
Oh, I see.
As the cabins improved, then of course
the thing is, they weren't anywhere near each other, and they were catering to different audiences in different places, in different price ranges for different reasons. So,
how many fishy features did your place have?
Well, the food smelt weird. That's fishy. Lots of the rooms didn't have curtains.
That's very fishy.
There was no heating a lot of the time.
There was a man who used to jack off onto the keyboard that you all had to share.
There was a man watching all sorts of sordid YouTube pornography.
Yeah. Clear internet search help.
There were various, as we heard, attackers.
Yeah.
In fact, there was only the one attacker who
of.
had indeed been attacking himself.
And it's still going well to this day, right?
No, unfortunately, I had to call them the other year to speak about some tax information. One of the most interesting things of all. And not only was I told that they no longer, quote, have a finance department, which I would say seems integral, to be honest, to the running of any institution that involves the taking of people's money. But I don't run a business, so
No.
I can't speak on their behalf. But also, their website was gone and their email address no longer gave you anything.
They're going for that.
It just bounced straight back. Yeah,
offline.
You've got to know someone who knows someone to get
it's
you
invite
in.
Only.
Yeah. And so it seemed that the place really wasn't doing all that well. They do now have a new website.
Oh, huge.
With just an even more cumbersome URL. But I was trying to find, because I seemed to remember that I was given by one of the guys who worked there their new email address, and it was just the most outrageously complicated series of periods and names. But now they don't publicly give an email address anywhere. Instead, they have a real don't email us, we'll email you kind of vibe of if you send us an email, we'll reply.
Yeah.
I think mostly so that you don't have to look at the abomination that is their email. They have a Twitter account as well.
How many followers?
But they have 300 and something.
Huge, that's great.
And they haven't tweeted in 16 months, but that could be anything.
Maybe get in touch about that, because you could social media manage that.
I could do that
to
for
maybe
them.
400 followers.
And I just reading through, it was just bleak. There was less interaction than we get on ours, and that is
we're very lazy.
We're the only 2 people sharing our stuff. Yeah. I too thought that it might be fun to have a look through some reviews and see what was going on. Before I mention that, though, a topic that we're going to flirt with a little later our exploration of a specific community, the Flat Earth community. I listened back to one of our Flat Earth episodes yesterday in preparation for this show, one that is indeed entitled Fat Earth.
Yeah.
And I tell a story in that episode about the hotel, which I had completely forgotten myself, which was that there was because they used to like have, they've got like venue halls and whatnot, lots of weddings. And there was a wedding going on and a guy walked past in a purple suit. And it turned out that it was a Joker and Harley Quinn themed wedding, but where the theme was it only applied to the bride and groom. Yeah. Nobody else came dressed as anything.
Exclusive.
B, he just had the purple suit on.
Yeah.
And she didn't get dressed up at all. She didn't even do face paint.
Right.
She just walked down the aisle holding a baseball bat.
That's really, they've boiled it down to the essence of the character there.
But I think possibly the maddest element of the story is that apparently the woman was awful and she had insisted on coming to the hotel beforehand, turfing the people who were going to be staying in the bridal suite out of it for a couple of hours so that she could practice walking in her shoes in the hotel, which is just insane.
I feel like the focus is not going to be so much on her walking if she's carrying a baseball bat next to the fucking Joker.
So I mean, it just kind of spoke to me about all the stuff I've managed to erase from that time. And maybe I've picked up inadvertently some of your resetting skills.
Well, you're welcome to them.
So the most recent review of the hotel was actually left 3 days ago. And it was, I do hate to say it was a 1 star.
No.
It was a pretty like nondescript review, but it caught my eye because their main thing was that they claimed that the whole place needed a refurb, to which the hotel replied that they'd just had one done.
Oh, that's so... Why would you fucking own yourself like that? Just be like, we will one day. If you come and stay again, we'll put it
we have actually done. The other thing was that they sent a maybe like 1 million word reply about what exactly constitutes breakfast at this hotel.
Wow.
Like it was honestly an essay in like, well, so actually I think you'll find that, we have actually just had it refurbished. And then look at this, the size of this paragraph that's like...
Is that all about
we
breakfast?
offer complimentary breakfast times, including fresh fruit and porridge oats, with unlimited tea and coffee to all our guests, because we cannot open our buffet and breakfast around... it just goes on and on and on. Just meaningless.
I'm probably not going to change anyone's mind, I would imagine.
Listen to this, though. Because the review, it was pretty fair. The claims were ones that even I was hearing when I was there.
Yeah.
Like the mattresses well past being like usable. The bathrooms are small and uncomfortable. The public areas are closed. Like there was literally couldn't
not
move.
Enough nautical
He said
theming.
Even allowing for the constraints imposed by COVID, this place has to be bad and its facilities unacceptable by any standard. So the response from the manager, who was the manager when I left, he's like the longest anyone has stayed.
Yeah.
But when I spoke to him on the phone even 2 years ago, he sounded like a man on the brink. It starts very kind of formally like, we are very disappointed to read your review. We have refurbished nearly all of our rooms, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Here's what we have on the sort of the breakfast menu. And then it ends by saying, the hotel is running on a skeleton staff, but despite this, each and every one of them tried their best to assist you with your, all caps, unrealistic expectations. We feel your review says a lot more about you than it does about our lovely hotel.
Lovelyhotel.com.
Which is just
that sucks.
So funny. There was another review which said, we stayed thankfully for just 1 night after a local wedding. I like that they didn't even bother having the wedding there. A very dated place in serious need of refurbishment. Shower didn't work, sink blocked, and when we reported it, there wasn't even an apology. Breakfast was stone cold, eggs harder than rocks, and very limited choice. Would never go back or recommend this place. If we hadn't prepaid, I wouldn't even have paid the bill without basics such as hot water. And then our favourite in any review, if I could score a minus, this place would get it.
Fucking get them.
Really,
come for
they
them.
were just not having any of the place's shit. Like, but yeah, weirdly, lots of these reviews, including, and I know you'll hate to hear this, including a damning 1-star review from Freddy Boy Kid.
No,
and that's
FBK.
when you know that you fucked it.
Yeah, normally such a fair review.
He's just a balanced person. Another was called the review was titled "Bring a Coat." just an amazing.
Bring a coat to your bedroom. To your very expensive.
To your very expensive, very cold.
In this
There's been no boiler for
never
4 years.
Hotel.
Yeah,
powerful stuff. One of the reasons people go to a hotel, correct me if I'm wrong on this, is to dick down and do some fucking.
Are you doing a?
I'm doing
another
segue. I'm full of them today.
You are actually on fire with them.
Yeah, they're quite good.
There was lots of dicking down being done.
Yeah, and sometimes it's good, but I'm going to guess more often than not in this particular establishment, it's what we might call bad sex.
Bad sex, yeah. In the non-fiction.
In reality, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the ways in which we've explored that topic is through the annual Bad Sex and Fiction Awards, which I think we were the first people to ever really, take a proper look at what they've got on offer and try and study it.
To bring it to the forefront of the public's mind.
And our literary career on TAS has been storied, yes. It's been a shame, quite fittingly, because we do only look at terrible, terrible works.
Yeah, I think that it's been kind of a backseat project for almost the entire length of the show, that we would do something where we kind of more sincerely spoke about art we thought was good and would recommend.
Yes.
And would sort of get some of that.
So much.
No, the thing is, it's just not quite as fun to do that. Yeah. And it requires some ounce of emotional earnestness that we're not prepared to give of a Sunday night.
It's hard to generate on the spot. We've talked, fan favourites include Bob Honey, Just Do Stuff.
Bob Honey, You Just Do Stuff, yeah.
And you're going to do
Sean Penn.
the sequel, I hear.
Well, I certainly will.
We've had the writings of Ernest Cline. We've had many a fun fanfic. I think our earliest was that Christmas fucking one of... Was it Thor and Loki?
Yeah, it was.
It was festive.
And later there was the Batman and Victor Hugo or whatever.
Course. And banging a Tetris piece.
We've had the poetry of Rupi Kaur.
Really nice stuff. Yeah. And what I guess we're trying to say is that it's announcement time. The announcement is this. We are starting a new show. That's crazy, isn't it?
Madness.
Sit down. Why did it take us 38 minutes to say it?
We are not. You cannot. Sure. You're joking, right?
It's called Big Bad Books. And the artwork, we're going to tweet it out from the at Shame City Gang account. It's very good.
It is very good. I didn't make it, so you know that I'm an unbiased source for that.
I did make it, and I'm also managing to be very objective about it when I say it's very good art. And the remit of the show is going to be a season by season exploration of a different text. It's going to be light-hearted. We're not trying to pull anyone down. We won't be finding.
We're not doing cancel culture.
Yeah, we're not going to find some person who's just trying their best and dunk on their book for 25 episodes. Of course not. We're finding people who are phoning it in. We're finding the Ernest Clines of the world, and we're
finding the people who are fucking stealing a living.
Yeah, we're going to be taking them down a peg or two. I don't think they're going to recover. I don't think multi-millionaire Ernest Cline is going to...
We are not going to be on the establishment's Christmas card list, absolutely. If you know what I mean.
The first season, which is launching very soon, I think it's next week.
It's going to be launching next Sunday. That's
is
the 27th of June.
Ready Player 2. We're going to be doing a chapter-by-chapter breakdown. It's going to be a slightly different format. We're also going to start again. For anyone who hasn't heard the Ready Player 2 episodes, don't bother listening to them now, because we're going to have a new feed. But check out the Shame City Gang Twitter account for more details. We'll let you know when it's up. We're going to put a trailer out so people can pre-subscribe.
But it's going to be huge.
It's going to be fortnightly, I think. We'll test to see how that goes. And yeah, we'll also be open to suggestions for things to cover. Maybe between big seasons, we'll do like one shots of like a fanfic or a poem or something. But yeah, that's the plan. How exciting. Are you thrilled?
I'm absolutely delighted. There were always some of my favourite things for us to look at. So I think that it's nice to have a
dedicated outlet.
Weirdly, and I'm not saying that it's a flaw of this show, but it feels kind of refreshing and quite comforting to have a show that's got a specific vision,
a topic or a theme.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a big change of pace for us.
Huge. It will take us some time to get used to the idea that the content can't just be anything.
It cannot just be whatever happens to be on the top of the feed.
So that, once again, is Big Bad Books, launching June 27th, which is next Sunday. Very exciting indeed. The segue now is going to feel forced, but I want you to know I really tried my best.
Some people, cowards, I call them, say you shouldn't flag the segue yourself.
Oh, goodness me. America. It's on everyone's lips.
People can't.
It's talk of the town, isn't it?
It's the number one country that people are discussing in the world.
One of the big ones
today.
In every sense of the term. Big cultural impact. Big amount of war crimes.
Big people. Am I right?
Huge
Am I right?
And we once ventured, not physically, but in a virtual audio sense, over as they say, across the pond, to the big, what do they call it? The
Apple?
Big, well, that's just New York. The big land of America, the big free land.
The land of the free and the home of the brave.
This, I'm talking, of course, was our special guest appearance, indeed the only one we ever did, on A Turning Point, which, what did that podcast kind of mean to you? What was it about?
Yeah, you should probably play the clip.
Here it is.
We are joined by them tonight to talk about their podcast, That's a Shame. That's the name of the podcast. But I ran across, while playing with the dogs, as you all are aware, I play with the dogs and listen to podcasts. Well, I came upon their podcast about a month ago and started it from the beginning and actually really, really enjoyed it, much more than I thought I would. And it really...
Wait,
okay.
What do you mean much more than you thought you would? I was going to say, I was like, don't fall asleep listening to episode 18. That's the one where we were talking about death. You'll have all sorts of dreadful dreams about Isaac in a flotation tank or Isaac as a toaster.
You did get dark on that one. Yes, I agree. That one went sort of dark.
Every now and then Isaac just needs to get something off of his chest and bless him, you've got to let him.
So anyway, when you asked me that question, like what I thought about what they had just said, I had just received a message from a friend of mine that might or might not be in the chat room, that was just basically saying, wow, that Isaac is gorgeous.
Oh.
See, they've asked for, you guys got to understand, they've asked for your website. They've asked for where your pictures are. And I've given all that. Jen and I should say, have given that information out quite sporadically throughout this whole conversation over the past hour. We have been, we're trying to get you out there because we'd love.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, we'd love to have you as an American show too.
Even if no one thinks I'm attractive,
I think you're gorgeous.
That's not what she meant. I'm sure of it, right, Jen?
She had just seen his picture, and that's why she said something. But you should have seen the look on Mark's face when I said that.
I chose those clips largely at random.
Yeah, weird.
And that's just a little sample of what an experience that was. An experience that, for me, stuck out as one of the worst audio quality productions. Even worse than our show originally. I'm sure they worked that out eventually.
I have such a vivid, near formative memory of recording that.
Yeah. It was a very weird time, wasn't it?
It was really late. It was really late. We were both still living at home.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, so I knew that I couldn't be loud at all.
Oh, yeah. And indeed you weren't.
I could have been screaming. It wouldn't have made a difference.
Even if the main host's microphone wasn't 4,000 times louder than everyone else.
So I was sat on the sofa in the corner of my living room back at my parents' old house. And we were like chatting on Skype and kind of like ready to go, like, okay, hit chocks away kind of thing. And I obviously had my messenger open chatting with Isaac, and the episode began with the longest rendition.
It was
every verse of the national anthem.
And it was like quite a funny idea, but it didn't stop.
It did not go on. It was one of those Family Guy jokes that goes on, but then it went on even longer.
Yeah.
I was in pieces. Like, it's actually quite lucky that it lasted that long, because it gave me enough time to like literally leave the room, come back, calm down. Just the strangest
it was very fun.
incident. There was a bit where some guy was pretended to jack off to our voices.
Oh yeah, the chat room was horny as fuck.
Yeah,
for Isaac. Oh dear.
But yeah, you later described that man as sounding, and I quote, like a bouncy castle full of cum.
I don't recall that.
In an early and striking instance of your ability to bypass your own disgust filters, so long as it's just you. In the same way that John Darkins hates a moan unless it's his.
Oh, yeah,
you
true.
can't stand filth unless it's spewing from your own orifices.
Wow. Well, look, we should say as well, all lovely people, and they were very supportive.
They
of
were
us back
lovely
in our early days of podcasting.
And if you want to check out the Wicked Pisser show,
Well, indeed. Let me give you some updates.
oh my god, yeah, please.
The Turning Point podcast, the progenitors and inventors of the Turning Day concept.
And that's something you're going to come on to explain.
It's an elusive idea that baffles even the brightest minds.
So, because that was what we were
were
there
on a
for.
turning day,
We were
yeah.
on a turning day.
It turns out just so were lots of other people.
Oh, cool.
But not always. Like,
Right.
the lines of what constituted a turning day remain mysterious to all that have studied this field.
Yeah.
And it's with a heavy heart that I have to inform you that on July the 30th, 2020, the final episode of A Turning Point was
You're
put
joking.
up. It was called Until We Meet Again. And it had a really nice send-off. It said, "It's time for retirement. It's been a long and really enjoyable 4 years," quote, "on the air. And it's time we spread our wings and fly off into the sun," brackets, "without going blind." Close brackets.
Not an
So,
Icarus reference.
As the legendary John Wayne would say, "It's been really great," brackets, okay, he never said that. "Enjoy our last show together." And enjoy it we will, because we'll probably be listening to it soon.
Yeah.
How does it make you feel to know that we're part of the history of that show that has now had its final chapter concluded?
It's interesting. Some would cruelly say that it's a bit like that part in The Thick of It that Malcolm describes as this is the last page of a very short chapter of a very thin book that nobody much enjoyed reading. But I would not say
No,
that.
because we
I would
loved
say
to be
they were
there.
Chase and the gang were
Yeah.
the loveliest people, and they had us on our show, even though they weren't really sure how, and even though we weren't really sure why. So, and if you can get across those barriers, then I think that we've managed to we've forged a link. I don't want to over-egg the pudding, but I think that we possibly alone rescued the
created the
floundering
special
special
relationship,
relationship.
Yeah. The Wicked Pisser is going from strength to strength.
Oh,
This
so there
was
is some good news.
Yeah, this was the show, the main show of one of the other guests. Who
Yes.
was a sometimes third chair, I think. On
Yes,
that
the one
podcast.
again who you described. As,
Well, we all said something. There, I couldn't really get a sense of what the Wicked Pisser was about, and we did ask, but he just sort of told us it was a phrase in Boston.
that sort of meant good.
Join Bumper, Byron, and Patty Cakes from
Byron.
the greater Boston area talking about a wide range of topics. Oftentimes, a round table of useless information, but humorous. You never know what kind of bleep is going to come out of our mouths.
Oh!
We are not politically correct.
Oh, good.
Explicit content, but we're not too bad. It's quite self-censoring for someone who's not
Yeah,
politically
exactly.
correct to use bleep and
We're not too
qualify
bad,
how
yeah.
bad they are.
Edgy brackets, but not too
Crazy
edgy.
Speaking of edges, I tell you what doesn't have those.
Oh,
It's the circle
It's the
ball Earth
spherical,
that we live
the
on.
spinning ball Earth.
But to some, this ball Earth theory has been radically and permanently debunked. And I'm talking, of course, now about the Flurfers. Chief amongst whom is Wayne Chipman, a man who we, as the investigative journalists that we are, we extracted from his mind the scoop that Jesus Christ himself was the original
first.
flat earther.
Yeah.
He was one of the very few guests that we've had. The only guest we've had on the show that we didn't know, right?
Yep.
Ever. Which seems a shame because it was a good episode and it was entertaining to record. And I believe you were doing some digging into what's going on in that flat community because it was a real preoccupation of ours for quite some time.
For a long time, like when I listened yesterday to the Fat Earth episode, that was the first instance of it, and that was just you telling me about it. You had just joined the group Flat Earth, no trolls.
Yeah. And I didn't join it as a troll, crucially.
Well, we discussed this in the episode because you were sort of pretty upfront about the fact you weren't a believer.
No, but I'm also not there to do any nasty trolling
That's good.
on Facebook.com.
But yeah, so that was relatively early. That was sort of that was pre-Block Switch. And Goodnight, Mr. Chips, where we interviewed Wayne Chipman was some 30 episodes down the line. It was a long way.
A crazy get as well, because Wayne is a god amongst the flat earth community.
An elusive, if omnipresent figure.
Yeah. And you looked into what he's up to now?
I certainly have, but we've got a little clip of him for those who don't recall, don't we?
Do we?
Yeah.
We should have a listen to that.
Let's listen to that.
But the Illuminati is...
It's a credible threat.
The ones who control the world are the ones who print money.
Okay.
It's a group of families. Okay, they can call themselves the Illuminati, but the Illuminati are more or less their puppets, and they control the world. I mean, if you give me a printing press, I'd control the world too.
I can do that. I can give you a printing press. We could crowdfund that.
Wayne, you could print money if you really
Wayne, have you heard of Bitcoin? It's going to be big.
But
it's blockchain. There's no gold standard. It's all fine. Deary
Goodness. Me. It's great to hear his voice again. After all these
years. Is not an annoying sort of squeak of a thing.
It's an amazing sound to come out of a human man.
And let me tell you, for those who were worried, it's not changed a bit. No. Oh boy! If anything, it's become more purified.
Yeah,
it's
become more Wayne.
Yeah. So I was sort of thinking about Wayne and thinking about the flat earthers in general, and I think we'll come to some Wayne updates in a bit. Mm-hmm. Because they're pretty interesting. What's been going on with Wayne?
Yeah, I'd love to check in.
And I've also managed to collect some brand spanking new Wayneisms, some new Wayne quotes. But what I was thinking about the sort of flat earthers stuff that we did is that it was quite emblematic of any investigation that we did into any community, no matter how deep or
patented deep dive.
Shallow. Yeah. In that there was always something like small that managed to be the most amusing part of it. It was never going in the thing that you expected.
Yeah.
I remember when we did like the Princess Diana.
That amazing group.
Yeah, there were loads of them, and the thing that came out of it was this weird guy who fancied me, who had like a bunch of Princess Diana dreams. I could send him a message if we wanted. Maybe I will.
Check in.
But there was always something weird like that with the flat earthers. For me, the two things were the obsession with the specific Nikon camera that they believe can bring the sun back over the horizon.
Proves that the Earth is flat.
But also, as was sort of like investigated in that very first episode, Fat Earth. Was this concept of Thoth, the moving island, which is just such an amazing insight into the. Into the conspiracist mind that like it's not just that the Earth is flat, it's that there's an ice wall around what we know of the Earth, and that outside of that there's a bunch of other shit which includes, for no reason,
none that we know,
an island that moves, which is called Thoth.
Thoth, the moving island.
Thoth. There's their ideas of the sun, which are called Set and Anubis, that they just sort of, that there's a lot of disagreement about.
I fucking love the creativity on show there.
Yeah, there's a disagreement as well. I remembered listening back between what counts as gravity. One of the theories being that the world is just always going up.
Into what?
Yeah,
from what?
Which is just amazing to me.
That is so good.
It was, however, theory. Much like the Diana investigation, another way that it managed to sort of like set a gold standard is by turning out to be really totally racist.
Yeah,
and I don't know why you have to be.
Yeah,
it's really,
but you do.
You just do.
If you're skeptical about things like the shape of the Earth, then you're also skeptical about things like equality.
Yeah, very skeptical.
Yeah,
but one thing you're sure of is that we know who's running it.
Yeah.
All very anti-Semitic. There was even a like an anti-Semitic strain to some of the Diana stuff. They were like, yeah. One of the groups, it was that I didn't even get in. I recall on their like their pledges, their declaration page. That was one of the things.
Wow.
We did spend, though, as you rightly bring up, quite a bit of time in the old groups.
I was in about 8 different Facebook groups. I probably still am.
And at one point we got into we both got into debate with a force that we were not ready to reckon with.
An intellectual giant.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about Wayne here. I'm talking about a second fella whose name I have unfortunately deleted from history.
Oh, no.
But if anyone wants to look him up, his work is that he's the owner of Feel Good and Look Good.
Oh yes, of
and he studied at the School of Awesomology.
Yeah.
He looks as well very much like a sort of racist. I don't know if you.
Yeah, he does have a racist sort of look about him.
But we probably made some bullshit argument like maybe
the Earth isn't falling up.
Maybe we dared to talk about that old fool Eratosthenes and his bloody. Yeah. So
we got schooled.
We did, and he gave us both a certificate of total failure, which read thusly: "This is to certify that," and then each of our full names. Yep. "Has failed in all attempts to provide a single proof of the heliocentric spinning globe proofless fairy tale. Has continually avoided and ignored endless empirical globe disproving evidence that contradicts his core beliefs.
Guilty as charged.
Has failed to research what he does not have the ability to analyse critically, understand, observe, or wake up to for fear of having his illusions and ego destroyed.
Very specific certificate.
Has only proven his own ignorance, media-programmed indoctrination, cognitive dissonance, and refusal to accept scientifically proven, observable, testable, repeatable, verifiable reality.
Get 'em.
Award, first degree parrot sheep.
Yeah.
Date, time to wake up. Signature, the truth.
Yeah, imagine getting a certificate signed by the truth.
You've been owned.
Knocked me for 6. I realised then that I needed to do my homework.
It's really interesting to me that they all kind of, despite the fact I know they would hate to think this, they all describe themselves as like awake, as woke.
Yeah.
But not woke culture.
No.
None of that namby-pams. Wayne himself mentions it. There's all sorts of stuff like the Rothschilds are responsible. They love to say that.
Yeah.
Wayne's hatred of the sub-Saharan Africans, as he said in a message. But they were more intelligent than the Australians.
Were they?
That's what he said,
What specific roster he's drawn up?
We were both, I still am, a member of a Facebook group called Wayne Chipman Owes Me Money.
Yeah, because his thing was that he would put out these like promises where he was like, if you can give me one reason, I'll give you some amount of silver.
I'll give you $1,000.
Yeah, it was $1,000. Sometimes it was some rare metal because he put all his money in ore.
Yeah.
Very normal.
Yeah, what he's doing.
What about how on his Facebook page, next in the relationship, it's got a heart and then it just says divorced.
He is one of the most divorced men of all time, to be honest. But in our kind of like search to find him today, we found that just a few months ago,
he's still going.
He appeared in a live YouTube debate
for hours,
for 2 hours, and I've had it on in the background while I was doing my prep for this show, and I hate to tell it to you, Wayne. He gets schooled. Like he comes up against someone
parrot sheep talking,
much more sort of prepared with the facts than we were.
Well, we did say that we weren't going to try and challenge him on any of his beliefs. We were just interested in really getting to know the Wayne underneath all of
We did just a little bit because they are very annoying and stupid beliefs.
Yeah, well, it's nonsense.
But here's some quotes.
Okay.
First of all, I'm sorry to say that he's using the exact same patter as he did with us.
Yeah,
it took 1 minute for him to get into his bullshit about...
If you're in an air show...
If you're in an airplane and you're flying 800 miles due east...
on the ball.
He loves that. But here are some quotes that he said.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say my eyes are 6 feet tall. He said.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go on that journey together.
No one uses the globe to navigate, he said.
What a
clearly means a globe, but like he just does not understand. He had a conjecture, and the conjecture was that it is impossible to create a rainbow without a glass refractive surface.
What does that have to do with his broader point?
Because it's about the existence of the dome.
Okay.
So because rainbows are circular, rainbows prove the dome because you couldn't have a rainbow without a glass refractive surface.
Well, that's
and the guy says to him, what's your evidence for that? And Wayne says, that's my conjecture. you look into it. That's just what
I wipe my hands at this.
That's just what I feel. He said.
Wow. Facts don't care about your feelings. Wayne.
So 1 minute later, the guy goes, well, it can be done here. And he brings up a YouTube video of this guy and his son who do an experiment in their garage where they get just a strong beam of light and they've got a PVC hose. Tube with some water coming out and they spray. He goes,
did you check if there was like a dome in the
I didn't know.
The garage?
No. But they do it. And as soon as the rainbow appeared, Wayne said, oh, that's awesome. So it can be done.
So he's willing to adjust.
Yeah. It was really interesting because he says he says at the end of their interview, he's like, I'll give it to you. Like you've got some good stuff on the flat versus globe matter. But he's like, but when it comes to the spinning, you're a fool. Like you're so dumb.
So is Wayne going to adjust his position to think that it's a static ball?
It's a static ball, quite possibly. He does say the very first thing that he says to us in our interview with him is that nobody goes directly from believing in the spinning ball Earth to the flat Earth. That everyone goes via the motionless Earth, and then that it's flat.
Interesting.
Which is not true.
That's the flat Earth pipeline.
Watch
out if your kids are texting about flat Earth.
The other thing that I think is possibly relevant only to us because it's a near word for word quote from something that we have done from one of our projects, which I think we're going to talk about very, very soon, is he's talking about the fact that nobody navigates using the globe. It's all via
what's the GPS?
It's all via
what's the G in that?
Yeah, good. He talks about the guy asks him how like do we know like how far it is from A to B if like a plane's flying, and he's like, well, they've figured that out.
Yeah, no, that's true.
He says that it's all in relation to like the North Star. And the guy said, but like, is that static? And he's like, yeah, it's just that is the central kind of like position. And he says, do you have any evidence that it stayed in the same position? And Wayne just replies with, do you have any evidence that it hasn't?
Fucking yes.
And the guy says, yes, it's on the screen now.
Oh no.
I know. So unfortunately, it's not really coming up trumps for Wayne, but
he's resilient.
Yeah, he is resilient. And I was kind of like weirdly proud of him for being open to sort of admitting that maybe the guy did sort of have him play, because they discussed the cameras and the zooming in and the zooming out and whatnot. Yeah, so he's done well. He's done well.
It's great to hear. Wayne is a man who is a testament to the ability of one to evolve intellectually, in Wayne's case.
Yes.
And the same could be said, this evolution thing, for That's a Shame, because when we listen back to those early clips, it's crazy how far we've come.
It is.
We used to be a show that talked about some stuff sometimes, and that really evolved out.
We've got
in the random mutation that we call car chat, cop chat.
Yeah, it was
quiz chat.
Car chat was a big part of the show
for quite some time.
For quite a long time, a running feature almost. Yeah. If you wanted to be very generous, we never
formalised it quite, because we like to be
and it was very real world dependent. Yeah. So you can't just plan ahead what's gonna happen with the car.
No.
But it did lead to some very funny moments.
I bet it did.
It did not.
Oh
dear. Oh man. I was going to get a clip for this, and I listened to excerpts from God knows how many episodes where we chatted about the car, and quite honestly,
there was so much gold.
It is so boring that it's actually too boring to inflict on people a second time. And like, hand on heart, if you're still here, having been through that era, if you haven't tagged on afterwards, like some sort of newbie,
a Johnny come lately,
and you're still here, then honestly,
fair play.
we owe you guys more than we could ever repay. It's a fun insight in a way, in a sort of like fossil record sort of way of the decline of my mental health.
Oh, really?
It's a really fun.
It's nice to have that on record for all time.
Yeah, exactly. For anyone to see, framed in a fun and wry manner. It was just a real kind of like portrait of a man on fire, at sometimes literally the car being on fire. But yeah, I suppose it was just one of those things where, because we did actually have a semi-formalized idea of, this was when we were doing bi-weekly, as in twice a week. We were doing Wednesdays and Sundays, and Wednesdays were like casual chat, and Sunday was real,
I remember, very
powerful content. Prepared weeks.
It was like
sometimes
cereal.
months in advance. But we did, of course, have to therefore have that formalized content that would come as the foil to the just ceaseless, endless, monotonous stories about my car.
Done that week.
To tie up the car, I thought that listeners might like to know that the car itself, it died. Oh, it died a death. It got towed 20 yards across the road to our new flat where it sat.
Evening.
We replaced the battery in it, at which point it came to life, and the new battery itself has died.
No.
Meaning that, unfortunately, the car, it's going to become a big cube of scrap.
You hate to see it.
In something of an all too on the nose metaphor for most aspects of my life. It's going into a very literal bin.
And I'm excited to exclusively reveal that all patrons will be getting a cube piece in the post. We've got your address, don't worry. Don't worry.
And for those listeners in Australia, we'll be choosing
you have to cover shipping.
the 50 pence more expensive option that takes anywhere up to 18 months longer.
Adds an element of fun.
Now, the formalized aspect of the content came in many, many, many forms. Cups was just one of those.
A fan favourite.
Something of a fan favourite. Something of I'd say like a progenitor of the Imagiporium itself.
Possibly.
That improvisational, impish spirit that possessed us. An altered state, if you will. To sort of like create something out of nothing. And I just thought I would look back over some of the great things that we created from that. I've got three. One is the Finding the Frosties Kid mobile app game.
Oh, yes, I remember that game.
Which was a massive, like, online game where you were either helping the Frosties Kid or you were lynching the Frosties Kid.
And there was no in between.
There was no...
We were very strict about
that. Was it. Like, it was for the Alliance, for the Horde. That was it. Which I think was powerful, but nowhere near as powerful as the Coma game, possibly the bleakest exploration of mortality ever devised, where the idea was that it was set in a room, I think kind of Habbo Hotel style, but you could do anything that you wanted in this room. But the idea was that you were trying to wake someone up from a coma, and that we would, in that same way as that Derren Brown experiment, where you just sort of like randomly attribute points to things people would do in an attempt to encourage them to do things, that we would do that, but that we had it written into the game that they would never ever wake up.
Well, that is fun.
Which we spent a long time just really nailing down just how much this guy would not wake up. Like it was
never a suggestion that it was going to be possible.
Never. I think at one point the only thing that we suggested was in a very like, if there's one specific pixel that if you click, they'll wake up. But beyond
and start
that,
singing. Gotta dance. That would be very good.
You'll be swell. And of course, my favourite, the Curry Tycoon.
I thought it would
which was managed to be such a spectacular exercise in self-delusion that we immediately forgot. The premise, the premise was that it was supposed to be the type of game that it was supposed to be as a playground game, much like Fumble or
Foursquare
British
Bulldog,
Tag, as the Americans might say, the big punch up. And it started very, very loosely with an idea that it might be, and then immediately just became a game set on a playground. And we got so deep into the lore of this game about having to steal from like your dad's successful chain of restaurants, and
you were like a curry sort of reseller to start with, right? And then you were like expanding your nodes
on the playground, and you were another way
on my Pokemon Enterprise,
and you were like you were trying to convert your very racist school to be more kind of multicultural. And it wasn't until we were basically done with the game that we realised that the brief
stipulated in no uncertain terms
that we had in fact devised a literally impossible to implement game, unless there is anyone out there
who wants to have a go.
Particular situation. Of course, the final aspect of this that you mentioned was our love of quizzes.
Yeah.
And I just could not be bothered to find them, to be honest. But what I did instead was I had to think back over what some of my favourites from our time were. There was the famous "Which Mario character are you?" quiz that I found in scare quotes and gave to you, and you were a little disappointed because you didn't turn out to be
King Boo
to be Mario, which for some reason you always seem to think.
Who did I be?
But pardon?
Who was I?
Well, I don't remember.
Probably someone even better.
I think you were Bowser.
No, doubtful.
I think you were a cross between Bowser and Peach.
Very cool.
But I don't think they were called that anyway, so don't worry about it. Just for licensing reasons, really. We of course did Proust. Oh, yes. We spent a long time doing Proust.
That big questionnaire.
Yeah, his. What is your favorite curse word?
Yeah.
And we really delved into some insights. Like
It got pretty deep.
I managed because we sort of would pepper it throughout other episodes. Yeah. We rarely had an episode that was just Proust.
Yeah.
Because we weren't going for cheap content, were we? But I remember I was listening to some for this episode, and there would just be at the end like, "Oh, I'm Proust," and the question today is like, "What do you think of death?"
It'd be like, sometimes just very sort of upsetting.
So like bleak. Like if you could only take one item of personal value, like what would it be? And you were like, "Well, what about this?" You were like, "Oh my," there was actually. It really amused me because you said, I can't remember, you said two things. You said it would either be X, I can't remember what it was, or Y, which was your childhood cat Smokey's favourite toy. And you were like, which was this orange? And then you correct yourself and you go, oh no, wait, his second favourite toy, because he was actually buried with his favourite. And I was like, proud that you remember that you didn't do a weird bait and switch and keep his favourite. There was, what type of streamer are you?
That was a great
That was a great
Game
quiz.
and Juice heavy.
Yeah, there was, as the person on the receiving end of that quiz, I came into it thinking it would be something about like what sort of emotes would you like to have.
It turned out to have very little
to do with streaming at all, and almost entirely to do with Game of Juice.
That was a
near obsessive. And then of course there was the unfortunately now defunct What Columbine victim are you? The quiz that really started the trend.
To be clear, we wrote some of those, but this one we did not write.
We did not write.
Someone sat down and thought, you know what would be a good thing to contribute to the history and the legacy of mankind?
Yeah.
My quiz about which of the people who was murdered in a school shooting are you? And I can't remember which one.
To be honest, they did a reasonably thorough
It was,
job.
Suspiciously thorough. Troublingly.
You're saying it was, an inside job.
Could be.
Goodness. But that is just some of the great content that, let me tell you, I'm happy to announce will obviously continue.
And it's spinning. We've got another announcement right now. We're starting car time. It's like comedians getting coffee in cars or whatever the fuck it is.
But it's about me just talking about all the different ways my car doesn't move.
All the ways to get to... All roads lead to Royslip with Declan. We are actually into another announcement now, and it's coming quite late in the day. In fact, we've got, I think, 2 on the trot.
Wow.
We've got to talk about the weird episodes that we've done over the years.
We probably should.
We don't have a clip for this one, but suffice it to say that diehard listeners will remember the Block Switch project. A really, of its time, or at the time, genre-bending, mind-melding experience for all concerned.
I think what you're referring to is the Block Switch project.
My mistake.
Are you not? Because the original Block Switch project was just a run of 3 episodes where we described nearly getting murdered by a lunatic in an Airbnb and having to make our great escape. The Blocks Proj, as it came to be fondly known, was something of a collective breakdown between Isaac and I over one interminably hot summer.
It was a powerful time, and it was a kind of it presented a challenge to the listener, as all good art does, often that challenge is like, you know, can you uncover the meaning? Like, can you adjust your way of thinking to accommodate these?
Will
values?
you look into the mirror
And
that we have held up?
the challenge that we presented was, can you still subscribe to this show?
Can you continue to listen
in good faith
at whatever turtle's pace we put these things out? I seem to recall that because we had initially planned to put them out just a little quicker than we did, that the original premise was that we were not going to actually talk to any of our loved ones for the entire time that this was going on,
and then it was
to make it real. And then it was about 2.5 months before we got the second one out.
We still did get a bit of reaction from some people. I remember some people being like, "Is everything okay?
Are you all right?"
And I didn't reply for a little while. I was just like, "Yeah, no, it's all fine. I was just being silly."
I've now taken that kind of forward into my real life, as I don't reply to people's messages.
Very cool.
And it's really refreshing, to be honest.
Who could forget as well, one of the greatest unironic triumphs of the medium, the podcast medium, the return. When we fucked off big time when COVID came a-calling.
Many people capitalised on the lockdown as a time spent indoors together with those you live with in order to create
more
entertaining content for those who were also trapped elsewhere without necessarily the means, the motive, or the opportunity to create that. And we've
never been one to follow the crowd.
In another subversion of that, we didn't speak for
thought,
2 months.
What if we blocked Proj the listeners? Which is to say, cut them off.
Yeah. With fair...
I think
we intended to say,
the return was very good, and it got us thinking. We were sat there in TAS Towers, Shame City Towers, and we were thinking, what if we dared to dream of a world in which we made more things, maybe with a bit more planning, maybe with a bit more time to execute them.
Maybe with a bit more warning.
Yes, as well. And also a bit more of a sense of people knowing what they're getting in for.
Yeah.
Rather than it being like one random episode that's really upsetting and weird about coronavirus / killing Santa Claus.
Yeah.
In the middle of an otherwise fairly standard run-of-the-mill
I
podcast.
seem to remember it had an optimistic ending.
Yeah, it did.
Just an old man being left to die alone in a vaguely and ambiguously zombie-infested
He was
future.
wheezing.
He was
fucking wheezing. And it's on that note that we've got another announcement, and maybe over to you for this one, because I had the pleasure of announcing Big Bad Books.
Big Bad Books coming 27th of June. So we're having a second new show, or a third show total. Which we don't. Oh no, we do have a name for it, don't we? God, I was so prepared for us to be unprepared.
I'm not sure if we've decided one of two things. Is it called the thing, or is it called the thing plural?
I think it's just Altered States, isn't it?
It is. It's
Altered States. There you
Little
go.
Reference.
You're
to
the first to hear it. Yeah. Which is going to be a kind of seasonal, as it were, as in made in seasons, not
it's
as in coming with.
We're just going to do episodes
when the leaves
Santa.
fall. No, which is basically going to be a set of like audio dramas.
Yeah, it's like narrative fiction, experimental stuff.
We've already got what will be the first series largely planned out.
Yeah.
And
we're going to be writing it.
We're going to be writing and recording that over summer with a sort of like speculative release of sometime in September or October.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're like quite excited to put ourselves into something of a more earnest creative process. Like, not that I think that certainly Proj wasn't funny
or fun.
Just to put it out there, just to be frank. But it was still kind of like tongue in cheek, as it were.
Yeah.
And the return equally so. But I think that what we both realised was that A, it was something that we were capable of doing, B, something that we really wanted to try and hand at as putting something serious out there. And we had a lot of long, sometimes fruitless, sometimes fruitful, always very sweaty nights of discussion last summer.
Yeah.
Kind of like nailing down exactly what we wanted this to be, how we wanted it to look, or I should say more accurately, to sound.
And we're looking at was it a 5-episode run?
Yeah, I think it's a 5-episode run. There'll be people who are not us in there, which will be an exciting change of pace.
That is exciting. We're trying to, I think maybe the only thing that I've taken from the pandemic is like, I just want to involve more people in the stuff that I'm doing, we're doing.
Yeah.
And so, it would be super nice to that end as well. if we're interested in like helping people produce stuff at some point. And so, we'll be kind of open to people getting involved, in whatever form. If you want to write something, the idea of Altered States is not that it's like a Night Vale universe where all the stories are related.
Nope.
It's like the first season will be something, the second season will be something just completely different.
Yeah.
Probably there'll be tonal similarities, but even that is not necessarily
Doesn't have to be the case. No.
So that will be really hype, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be nice. I think as well, under the umbrella of what you said there about kind of wanting to help other people make stuff and to make our stuff with other people. Like we have other plates speculatively spinning
in quite practical ways as well. Like these are not hypothetical spins.
No, these are things that we have names and art,
cover art,
and other names, contracts signed, and all of that. But that we don't want to blow our creative load in one go when it comes to the announcements.
But the kind of overarching thing, and we'll come to one final announcement momentarily. But the big vibe is that we're kind of reconsidering what Shame City is and launching it, I think, as a studio umbrella for a bunch of shows. And to that end, we've brought back That's a Shamecast. So that's going to be the Twitter for this show.
It's live and kicking.
And Shame City Gang, the much less followed one, which we will change. We'll probably do a little bit of actual tweeting on there at some point, is going to be for the studios as a whole. Now, you're probably thinking at home, Isaac, Declan, boys, guys, gang, how can you give and give of yourselves to this great extent
and
ask for nothing in return?
We cannot.
It's not possible. I've run every simulation, every possible scenario. And the bittersweet announcement is that TAS, this show, is dialing back. It's not going.
It's not disappearing.
It's going fortnightly. Yeah. So we're going to be releasing TAS episodes every other week. And then on the off weeks, we'll be, for now, releasing our Big Bad Books show. The reason for that is probably readily apparent, right? We've got ideas for about 7 different things, all of which would be on like a weekly, fortnightly or monthly basis, and only so many goddamn hours in the day.
Yeah.
And
like already, we're aware as much as you are that, certain weeks aside, where we've knocked it out of the park, may I say, hell of a show.
It has happened.
It has happened, and you can't take us to court on that.
Absolutely.
We know that there have been a fair few where the content is suspiciously and literally last minute in its creation, and we don't want to just like string you along putting out that, or to have the promise of this being every week and then because of other projects, it would
be a shame because this is the.
It would be what?
It would be a fuck. It would be a shame if it were to be like just stop,
to just die
very
fade
slowly
out
and sadly
with a whimper.
The problem with this show that we've talked about before and that everyone must be aware of is that it's very hard to recommend to anyone.
Very difficult.
And we're constantly surprised by
difficult to recommend to people, and I don't know about you, but for us, difficult to admit to
on record.
Yeah,
but we've been surprised and humbled and very grateful for the wild levels of support that the show has had over the years.
Just pathetically grateful for it, honestly.
And the hope is that by dialing this back to what will be like 26 episodes a year, we can plan them. We'll split 13 each. We'll plan concepts. And also by spinning off into these new, more specific shows, we can kind of keep the tone of this a little bit more consistent. And also take elements that we really enjoy and run with them. Because I think one of the problems with That's a Shame is that like it is just whatever we want to talk about. And that's good for us. But if you're someone that hates one aspect, if you just don't fucking care about us talking about books, then fair enough. We're not going to do it now.
Yeah.
We've got another show for it.
You've fucked it for everyone.
Yeah. You've ruined it for yourself. But no, it gives us a bit more of a chance of focusing and a bit of a chance, I think, of reaching a new audience with other stuff. I'm thinking of That's a Shame as being like the kind of core. This is like the director's commentary of all the other projects that we're doing. Like this is the most unfiltered, apart from perhaps the twitch.tv,
which is another
city,
which is another big thing that like we've been putting a lot of effort into. And if obviously like unless you want to watch the VODs, like it's very time dependent. We are very lucky again to have listeners all over the bloody globe, all over the big flat disc of ours, under the dome.
Yeah.
And so it might not be practical for you to watch us always. But I think that if the sort of like just us
unfiltered test
us just
vibes.
fucking about is your vibe, then that's certainly a place to go.
Yeah.
And it's been really fun. It's been enjoyable. And like on Twitch and between Twitch and the Discord, which I think is shame.city/Discord.
That's the one
isn't
which
it?
has also had a beautiful rebranding.
It's
gorgeous
amazing.
looking place.
I think the thing that I am proudest of from this show, and that I think is our greatest strength going forward, is that we have managed to curate just a really nice community of people, just really nice people, and some are with us from the very beginning, and some came and left, and you know what, fair play to them.
God bless them wherever they are.
And some have joined only recently, but they're all very, very and equally welcome.
Yeah.
And we're just really grateful to you for it.
So Mummy and Daddy aren't going anywhere.
We love you. We love you more than we did before.
Yeah, we're going to be in more places than ever. We're broadening as well to the idea of stuff that we're not in, right, but still under the same brand. And to that end, I think more people should make podcasts, because it really, the more that I've thought about it and talked about it, doing this degree, I think doing this podcast has like been hugely beneficial to my ability to just make stuff, because it really, as we've discussed, it forces you to just put things out. And I think to that end, people have like a weird sense that is fueled by all of the liars online that say it takes 10 hours per 1 second of audio to make a podcast. If you're interested in doing a show, then we've been doing this for 4 years. We can help you out with hosting and editing, tips, if not doing it directly. Send us an email, or send me an email, isaac@shame.city, and let's see if we can do anything, even if you just want some advice.
Yeah. Here's some
about the very boring practical
Here's
stuff.
some free advice.
Yeah.
Don't talk about your car.
That's a top tip, and
you
can
get that
more
for free. Yeah,
you can get more like that. So to recap, we have got 2 new shows announced today. Big Bad Books, June 27th. We'll be looking at Ready Player 2 in a slightly new format. And the idea there is that we'll have guests to talk about per chapter things, not every time, because it's a logistical challenge guest, as you can imagine. But at some point, we've got Altered States coming, I think, let's say September, if all goes to plan, which will start with a 5-episode run. That's going to be infrequent, right? We're not saying that's going to be weekly or bi-weekly.
No.
It's going to be seasons and seasons. And we've got more to announce down the line. I'm actively looking into stuff. In fact, the first other project we haven't even mentioned, the one that we chronologically looked into first, but there's more stuff in development. We're redoing the website. So by the time you hear this, you'll never get to see it as it was. How sad. And here is actually the only really sad bit of news. There's no longer going to be bespoke episode art per episode.
Oh no!
Because the way that the site's going to look, it just doesn't accommodate it.
That's
so
such
we
a
made.
shame.
I'll make a special one for this, and we've got 200 plus images to enjoy. Maybe we'll make
a little gallery,
like a $500 Patreon tier to just get those JPEGs, get those good JPEGs on your computer.
Good and haunting, not suspicious at all JPEGs.
We are, as Declan said, as we have said frequently, but perhaps not frequently enough, we're immensely grateful for everyone who.
I can't believe it.
What's happened?
I forgot.
Have you got another announcement?
I made something.
He made something? Guys, this is news to me. I'm not even doing a bit. He's climbed away.
I'm going.
Gracefully, he's left the fucking room. As we await to find out what Declan's referring to, let me just plug our socials. Shame.city, coming soon, the 2.0 relaunch. At That's a Shamecast is the Twitter for the show, and at Shame City Gang for the Shame City Studios, or whatever the fuck it's going to be called. And Isaac at Shame.city if you want to chat about anything, any ideas that you have for stuff that we can help with. What have you got? Declan's creeping back in. He's got cups. You're joking. You're fucking
You thought
joking.
I'd let you get away with an episode with no cups, saying
the hell
goodbye
is it
to
gonna
old
be?
formats.
He's got 5 of
There's
them as well.
5 cups. I thought that we could, as ever, alternate who takes from
What
which.
is the concept
Would
here?
you like to take from the first
Sure.
cup?
Yeah, I took from pink cup.
Yeah.
You took from orange. I'll take from yellow. Are we taking them all at once?
No. You go with your first one now.
Oh, okay, go with my first one now. Okay, I've got thank you all.
That's weird.
That's
my one says for listening.
Oh,
what?
Okay, let me try the yellow one.
I'll get green ready.
To our silly show. I resent that adjective.
For 200 whole episodes.
God.
Or it could say for zoo whole episodes.
Yeah, I think
can't
it's
quite
zoo.
tell. Yeah.
We love you all. It says.
Oh,
that's beautiful, and you just found that.
And I suppose ordinarily we'd improv around that, but
is there anything more to say?
Says it all, doesn't it?
As always, the Cups knew.
They know. You can't fault them.
You
cannot fault them.
Well,
you can.
Thank you. Some may.
Nobody would dare.
Until the next episode of That's a Shame, which will be in 2 weeks from today. I've been Isaac. You've been.
I've been Declan.
And here's to 200 more.
Thanks, guys.
That would be a really long time, though.
Oh, God.
God. Bye.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you. For the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, oh Mother Nature's recipes that bring the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder, my new home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. The bare necessities of life will come to you.